Arcade Heroes.
Greetings, it's Adam with ArcadeHeroes.com, and part of arcades, or you could say an essential part of arcades, is pinball, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, no, I generally don't get any scoops on pinball news and things of that nature. I don't follow it as closely as some others who are dedicated just to pinball, and sometimes it almost feels like a separate entity in the space just because of how attractive it's become to people who are just collectors and don't do any sorts of business operations with them like I do. But still, these are devices that can be used in a business like mine, and so they're worth talking about. But there's been so much news that's hit about pinball machines recently that it's a little bit of a shock. And so I wrote about this on a post here that says March is pinball season, where I had updates from Stern, Jersey Jack, and American Pinball, as each one of them have games that they've been teasing. With Stern, of course, they had Foo Fighters, which was just launched, and I received an email where the email is entitled Stern Pinball's Foo Fighters Pinball games sell out in record time, and within the body of the email itself it says Foo Fighters pinball machines sold out in record time, with all 1,000 limited edition machines selling out in minutes. The entire initial production run of both Pro Edition and Premium Edition games have also sold out in just a few days. And it said that at the end of that paragraph, Foo Fighters machines instantly became one of the hottest, most in-demand pinball machines in company history. As I recall, the one other time where this happened also was with a music band, and so I guess this is one reason why you keep seeing music bands come to pinball, is because they are good sellers. I don't know how well they actually sell to locations, but for collectors, they're big stuff. And so Metallica was one that as I recall, the limited edition also sold out very quickly, but it sounds like Foo Fighters sold out even faster than that did. But I also know AC/DC did extremely well in collector side sales, and so yeah, that's Foo Fighters is a big success, so congratulations to Jack Danger and the team there at Stern that was involved with this one for that. And also, as mentioned, there was the Godfather 50th anniversary, or 50 years, I'm not sure which is supposed to be the precise name there, but that was just unveiled the other day, where they announced only 2 models for that. And so if you're new to pinball, Stern is the one that generally has Pro, Premium, and Limited editions. Jersey Jack will do Standard, Limited, and Collector's editions, but they don't always announce a Standard edition right off the bat. I'm not 100% sure if there are instances where they've never done a standard one. I want to say Pirates of the Caribbean, but I don't know that for certain. But I also think with like Toy Story 4 and Guns N' Roses, they didn't announce a standard at first. But again, I might be wrong on that one. But either way, for this, if you didn't see it, Foo Fighters had the 3 models there, but with Godfather, they just have the limited edition, which is at 5,000 unit production, and the collector's edition, which only has 1,000 units for production. And so I imagine if all those sell out or get close to selling out, then that's perhaps where they would come up with a standard edition. But in both cases of the reveals for Foo Fighters and the Godfather, they look like they're fun games, but of course you never know until you actually play it. And so how a game feels, what the flow is like, it can depend on a lot of things. At least with Godfather and from the Foo Fighters features matrix that they posted, it seems like they're both games with some great depth and a nice flow. But again, who knows until we actually get to see them. So I will have a chance to play Foo Fighters at Amusement Expo. If anybody from Stern is actually watching this, please allow me to film it, because for some reason at IAPA I was told not to film James Bond, which was a little off-putting. I've never had an issue before, and plenty of other people are filming with their phones, and so I don't know why I can't do it. I have a media badge, and so that was a bit strange, and so we'll see if I'm even allowed to film Foo Fighters or not, but I'll at least get to play it, even if they don't allow me to point a camera at it, like they'll allow everybody else. Maybe I pissed somebody off. I don't know. I'm sorry. I just try and tell it like it is, but I am helping you out here with some free advertising. And then, beyond these two big properties that people know and love, there's one that's bucking the trend, and that would be American Pinball. If you're not familiar with them, they're still relatively a newcomer. They started off with Houdini, and then they did Oktoberfest. They have Hot Wheels Pinball and Legends of Valhalla, but they've been teasing out their next game called Galactic Tank Force with some teasers, but not on YouTube. They've been doing it on like Instagram and I think Twitter and Facebook. So fortunately, the site that is focused entirely on pinball stuff, pinballnews.com, had these teasers, and I decided to borrow those, take them, and put them into this video. So if you saw this already, you can see what little is known about Galactic Tank Force. American Pinball also has a nice new logo there. And so this first teaser talked about Game 5, a humongous amount of assets, and Carrie Hoskins, she is an actress who was, I believe, Sonya Blade in Mortal Kombat 3. She was also one of the dancing girls in Revolution X, and appeared in some other Midway arcade games of the 90s as a digitized actress, and so she is a name that's known. Unfortunately, I don't know the other names there. In the second teaser, the logo reveal was a lot faster, and then it has this guy in this 1950s retro future sci-fi headset with the weird eye movement there, and an ice cream air freshener going at it. But this is all we really know about this game so far. I hear from the rumors that it might actually look like a tank when the top is folded down, which is cool, but most of the time pinball machines aren't folded down, so it's, I guess, nerdy cool for pinball stuff. But so far, that's all we know about that one. Also, here on pinballnews.com, I haven't talked about this on the site. I didn't notice it until today, really. This one called Final Resistance by Multimorphic P3, and so they have a blended system. The P3 system is like part digital pinball, part physical pinball, and this allows them to update the machines very easily. They sell them as kits, and so you can easily swipe out, or relatively easily change out, the playfield and the artwork using your same cabinet. And as it mentions here, this is the 6th one. The most famous release that they have done so far would be Weird Al's Museum of Natural Hilarity, but unfortunately these guys never go to the amusement trade shows that are focused on operators like myself, so events like IAPA or Amusement Expo, EAG, stuff like that. And so the only way I would ever come across one of their things is if I found a bar locally that happened to have one, or if I decided to buy one of these myself. But I'll get into my thoughts on buying one of these new ones here in a little bit. But this one looks cool, I guess. Let's see. I didn't really read into it much, but looks maybe cyberpunkish from the theme, I could guess there. And so, yeah. But they're not the only ones that have something else. And so, again, this is where March is becoming a big pinball month. And so the most surprising one just popped up this morning. I was typing up an email to somebody else, and then something from Raw Thrills came in. And I noticed it was titled strangely. It said, "I'll be down in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail." And I was like, okay, that's strange. I can't think of any of their games that have anything to do with lamb's tails other than maybe Big Buck Hunter. But I clicked on it, and lo and behold, it had this image on there that also mentioned the first pinball machine from Mechanix Pinball and Chicago Gaming Company is coming soon. We should have shotguns for this kind of deal. So Mechanix, if you don't know, they're a subsidiary of Raw Thrills. They're headed by George Petro, who worked on many Midway games in the 1990s. Was influential in some other Midway titles that were in development there, including NBA Jam. If you read the NBA Jam, the book, his name pops up there too. I've talked with George many times, and he's a great guy. And so, yeah, they are apparently making a new division dedicated to pinball. And interestingly enough, I guess this is something that the guys over at Pinball News knew about. From their article on Pulp Fiction, they talk about how they had talked about the game many times on their podcast, how it would be designed by Mark Ritchie, made in collaboration with either Raw Thrills or Mechanix, and that they've also heard about how Eugene Jarvis has wanted to get back into pinball. Again, if you don't know Eugene's history, I mean, most people know him for Defender, Robotron, or Cruisin' USA. He got to start in the gaming industry at Atari, working for their pinball division. And in fact, if you get the Atari 50th Anniversary Collection, which I did a huge, long review about recently, there's videos of there interviewing him and him talking about the pinball division there. And Eugene has done some work on pinball machines in recent times. The one that I recall would be Batman 66 for Stern. He did some stuff with the video, as that was the first or one of the first Stern games to use an LCD HD screen, and so Eugene did some work there. But looks like he'll be able to do some work there on this with Pulp Fiction from this trailer, and I'm going to keep it I'm going to keep the sound off so I don't get dinged by YouTube, because I seem to get dinged every time I do anything with anything pinball related, because they're always related to a license. And so, yeah. So it does a quote from the Pulp Fiction movies. Or movie, not movies, sorry. And from Quentin Tarantino. And this is where it does one of the quotes on that, although I'm already forgetting which quote it was. So this is by Mark Ritchie, who has done pinball machines in the past, but as I linked to here, if we were to go to Pinside, which has kind of his resume, there's 21 machines under his name. The most recent one would be the remake of Kingpin in 2018, which I guess I missed news on that being remade. But otherwise, most of his games came from the 80s and the 90s. And so it looks like it still has been kind of a while since Mark was involved with the design of a pinball machine, but he would be the principal designer behind Pulp Fiction. And so this is a big surprise that Mechanix is doing a pinball division. Granted, they've been involved with pinball before with Big Buck Hunter pinball, but I think that was more just licensing it out and providing some feedback. Granted, both Raw Thrills and Mechanix are based out of the Chicago area. As mentioned, Eugene Jarvis has a history with pinball. I'm pretty sure a lot of other guys, aside from just being fans of pinball, have also done some work here and there, maybe on software design and stuff with pinball machines. And so I guess in that sense it's not too surprising. It was definitely unexpected to see this. So yeah, which of these machines are you most looking forward to? Do you want to find out more about? Which ones will I get to play? Well, probably just Foo Fighters and Pulp Fiction. As mentioned, there is a trade show coming up at the end of March, last week of March, called Amusement Expo International. And Stern Pinball is always there with a booth, and Chicago Gaming's there with a booth, and of course Mechanix is there, usually under the Betson flag. But unfortunately, I didn't see any booth for American Pinball this year. They've been to Amusement Expo in the past, but they might be skipping it this time. Jersey Jack has been skipping Amusement Expo for a lot of different times, and that's one of those things where I guess would be a divergence in opinion and my thoughts about why is this happening now? Why is pinball just exploding like this now? And so my best guess is it's just from the pandemic once the lockdown started, pinball started to increase in popularity. In my local area, I know of 3 guys who started up pinball rental businesses. They took games from their collection that they already had and would rent them out to people for a certain amount a month. I'm not sure the exact costs, anywhere between, I think, $200 to $400 a month. And a couple of them I know have been very successful with that. And I've even worked with them at my arcade, where they have some of their machines at my arcade, and so they're still doing the rental thing in that regard. Now, I've gotten the impression that things have slowed down a bit from the lockdown times, but I've also heard from Stern that they were saying that they were very busy because they got a lot of orders that came in. Now, of course, there were a lot of challenges in production and getting parts between when the lockdown started and throughout 2021 and even 2022. Just the supply side issues have been a major hindrance to the creation of new games. But I'm guessing that just a lot of this is just catching up and overtaking the glut of the slowdown that had happened from that. But also just the hype behind pinball has grown immensely, especially in recent years. Definitely compared to when I started blogging back in 2007, it's just completely different now. Now, granted, when I started, Stern was the only one out there. Chicago Gaming wasn't doing any remakes. Jersey Jack didn't exist yet. American Pinball, Spooky Pinball, etc., etc. Wasn't doing anything, and so there wasn't a lot of excitement about pinball there. But now you have all these different pinball manufacturers. There's all this demand, but again, it seems to me, now I don't have a lot of hard data to support this, and so this is anecdotal, but it seems to me that this is mainly being driven by collectors. And so I wish I knew how much in the sales for each one of these companies was going to collectors versus operators. But as an arcade operator, first and foremost, I can say that as I've talked about in other videos, pinball is not a moneymaker. And yes, it is good from an investment point of view, as far as if you want to resell it down the road, because pinballs do tend to hold their value unless for some reason the game design is so bad that people just hate it, and so then they just don't care. And I think that happened with Transformers where I have heard of a few people who bought quite a few units and they just had the hardest time selling them years and years later. But for the most part, the games do hold their value and are easy to resell. But the problem is that in a business situation like mine, we need games that are profitable within a year or so. The issue with pinball, at least from my observations and looking at the numbers that I've had operating dozens of pinball machines over the years, is that the ROI is something more like 7, 8, 9, 10 years, which is just unheard of with anything else in this business. Even with those very expensive VR setups, I believe those are somewhere around 2 years ROI, sometimes faster, depending on the machine. And so it's becoming tough. Like, personally, I'm just not really interested in buying a brand new pinball machine, especially where, with inflation also hitting pinball, as an example, pre-pandemic, pre-inflation, skyrocketing out of control, the prices on pinball, say a Stern Pro, was around $5,400, $5,500. Now, the Foo Fighters, that was just announced at, make sure I get this right, 7,000 MSRP. And so that's quite a big jump, but there isn't much that's really changed as to what's in the machine, what it's coming with, other than the theme. But that's always the case, except for the LCD screen in these. You could throw this in a time machine, take it back to 1999, and who knows, it might do just the same as far as earnings on location go. And one thing that I also notice is that when I get to see earnings reports, pinball's never on there, never mentioned. Now, granted, earnings reports are hard to come by, but VR's on there, Redemption's on there, video games are on there, but it's very, very rare that I'd ever see pinball on there. Now, granted, most of the time you're not getting earnings reports from bars and independent arcades like mine. It's coming from family entertainment centers, and family entertainment centers don't like to generally invest in pinball. I mean, granted, that's not everybody. There are some FECs out there that do have pinball, but not all of them get into it. Like Dave & Buster's is a good example, because it's not a moneymaker. And from a business perspective, you don't want something that's going to take up to a decade to pay itself off, and that can be the case when it comes to like the premium and the limited edition versions of a game. Like on the Godfather, the limited edition, I think it was 12,000 or 13,000, with the collector's edition being at 15,000. And just for me, the pricing on all of these is just a non-starter. I could see myself maybe trading a machine that I have already that's already died off, but I don't see myself anytime soon investing into a brand new one, just because there's no potential there. I don't see anything changing, and it's like it can't just be the theme. You can't rely on that or hope on that or roll the dice just on that. There has to be something about it that brings people in. And I really thought that Stranger Things was going to be something that would bring people in, but it might have just been bad timing on my part, because I got it literally the day that the lockdown started, is when it arrived on my location. And so I didn't get to even make any money off of it for the first month or so. But still, the trend that I've seen with pinball machines across 2 locations, and again, I know I'm not a bar, so I don't have that component to bring people in, but just being a normal arcade, I noticed that I can bring in a brand new game. It'll do fine for the first year, but fine's relative. It's not doing like Jurassic Park or Cruise and Blast numbers. It's like not even a quarter of those, more like a tenth of what those do. Like what my Mandalorian made in a year, my Jurassic Park makes in a month, as an idea. But still, it'll do okay for what a pinball machine is for a year, and then it just drops off a cliff. And then next thing I know, like right now, my Addams Family from 30-ish years ago is making more money than my Mandalorian has. Last I checked, my numbers were Addams Family had made $243 this year, from January 1st to now, and Mandalorian was something like $173 for the entire year. And so this is where I've said in other videos, and I'm saying again, something has to change in pinball to help casuals get into it. If it doesn't, then I just don't see as an operator where it's worth it. I mean, again, I like having pinball because it's something unique, and I enjoy it myself. I'm not terribly good at it, but I still enjoy it. I have fun with it. And it's great for tournaments. That's a really awesome thing for it. That brings in people more for tournaments than video games can, generally speaking. But just again, you have to, from a business perspective, look at what these things are, where these things are at on profitability, and they're not there. And again, I know, as I've been told, I need to do a free play model or I need to do a bar model, but I've talked to people who do that, and it's still not profitable. It's still this multi-year ROI, and so I don't think that's the solution. I mean, again, it can do better in those situations, but there's still the maintenance, and there's still just the interest drop off. And I think it's just because so many collectors out there, so many people that care and know what pinball is, don't have much of a reason to come to a location to play it, only if they don't have it and they're maybe interested in getting one. But I get that all the time. In fact, the other day I was here, I had a guy come in and asking me where you could get pinball machines from, and I gave him some information, but he didn't play. He didn't buy any tokens, and so it's where it's very, very strange as to how this whole setup is. But I hope that all of these are good earners on location. But if not, I mean, definitely for Stern, Foo Fighters is selling extremely well to collectors already, so I know they're going to keep going on that. Haven't heard yet how Godfather's been selling. Galactic, Tank Force, and Pulp Fiction aren't up for sale yet. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on that. Thanks for watching this long video. We'll see you around on the next piece of news, and stay tuned for more stuff coming from Amusement Expo once that hits at the end of the month.